Hi everyone, Corey here from Tales from a Polk County Girl, and in this book review video, I'm going to be reviewing Victoria and Abdul by Shrabani Basu, and I probably butchered her name. So this book is a biographical memoir about Queen Victoria and one of her Indian servants. The subtitle is The True Story, Victoria and Abdul, the true story of the Queen's closest confidant. And if many of you may be aware, this was recently made into a movie starring Dame Judi Dench as Queen Victoria, and I can't wait to see that movie because Dame Judi Dench as Queen Victoria, to me, is going to be hilarious. And a few of the trailers that I've watched, yeah, it's going to be funny. There's some one-liners in there. But anyways, so this book takes place, Victoria's all in black, so Prince Albert has passed away, and it has been some years since he passed away. And four Indian citizens are sent to England in order to become servants in the royal household. Well, Karim Abdul, what is his name? Abdul Karim, my bad. Abdul Karim becomes her friend, her confidant, as well as her servant. She promotes him up in rank, and they become very close. He begins to teach her how to speak Urdu, his language, so that she can begin to read Indian newspapers. And at this point, Queen Victoria is in her 70s when this happens. So it's amazing, with what they say about learning a new language is the older you get, the harder it is. But Queen Victoria became very dedicated to those lessons and could read and write and speak in Urdu. And at the time in Britain, and according to my husband and in-laws in upper royal societies and circles, it's still like this. There is a certain classism and racism. And this was especially prevalent during Victorian times. The royal household did not like Abdul, and I haven't watched the movie yet. I read the book, read the book before you watch the movie, and the royal household was trying to get rid of him and just some of the stuff he went through. And I'm not saying that Abdul is completely innocent in everything. He did do some things that were questionable in my opinion. But when the queen is your best friend and she thinks you can do no wrong, you tend to take advantage of it. So, I just thought it was a very nice story about, this lowly servant that ended up befriending a monarch and ended up becoming a very important person in her life. But one of the main reasons I really wanted to read this book, not only because the movie looked interesting, was, as you guys know, I'm a librarian, and I read an interview with the author, and she was talking about her research process and just how hard it was to find some information, because after Victoria died and Abdul was sent back to India, spoiler alert, but sorry, he was essentially wiped out of royal history. Like, there's the reason why she first stumbled onto this, the author, is she wrote another book, which I'm going to have to read too, Curry, the story of the nation's favorite dish. If you don't know this, Indian curry has surpassed fish and chips as the preferred takeaway in England. Takeaway for Americans is takeout. And she was researching how this came to be, and it was Abdul who introduced curries to Queen Victoria. Um, she would request them, they would eat them several times a week, and it was just really cool. Um, but, you know, what the author said about how hard it was to find anything on him. Because she was researching how did curry come to England? And she found a reference to Abdul Karim and the royal kitchens and making things for Queen Victoria, and then she couldn't find anything else on him. It's like, well, because Victoria's journals had been censored after she died, and any reference to him was lost. Their letters to each other were not kept. Queen Victoria was a prolific journaler and letter writer, and none of the letters exist anymore. They were destroyed, and just her hunt for all this information, where she had to go through the royal archives. Where is it? It's in the introduction, I believe, where she goes through every place that she had to go through to get information, and her acknowledgments where she thanks the Royal Archives, Queen Elizabeth II, for access to this stuff. And but what was the most surprising is that she was able to track down Abdul's descendants. I'm not going to really go into it because I don't want to spoil the book and spoil the movie, because for me, this book isn't just about the history, it's also about the research process and what she went through. And she was able to track down his relatives who were kind of in hiding after he died. And when I say was able to find them, like, recently, because he died, I don't remember when he died, but it was in the last century. So there's been several generations, and they kept his journals and the few things that were left from his time in England, and that was a wealth of information for her. And and the author was able to write a very good, comprehensive narrative. So I recommend it if you like biographies and memoirs, if you're interested in royal drama, because there was drama. And one thing I really did appreciate about this book was, in the beginning, the author posts Queen Victoria's family tree. To be quite honest, before my last trip to England in October 2017, I will admit I did not know much about World War I. Between a lack of educating myself and American schools just they like to pretend that wars don't exist. We didn't learn about World War I or World War II when I was in school. We learned about the American Revolution and the Civil War. That's it. So before October of last year, my very limited knowledge of World War I and Queen Victoria, and because I knew how many children she had had and how the European monarchies were all intermarried and everybody was one big dysfunctional family, I said to my husband one day, years ago actually, like, so if Queen Victoria had lived another 10 years, World War I might not have happened. And I just said it kind of nonchalantly, and he looked at me. My husband is a big World War I, World War II buff, and he said, "You have no idea how accurate that statement actually is." And then, this past October, I went to the Imperial War Museum, really learned about World War I, and then reading this book, just who was part of the family, how all of the ruling families of Europe, essentially her grandchildren, showed up for the funeral. And And yeah, it was, yeah, very insightful to me. So now understanding more how everybody was interrelated and how everybody was related and married. Let me get back to the family tree in the book. And you guys can look this up on the internet. You don't actually need to buy the book for this. It really does, it really is interesting. So I recommend this book. I won't say it's a quick read. There are some passages that take longer to get through than others, but I mean, it's a good book. I do recommend it. I'll put a link to where you can find it on Amazon down below. I don't do affiliate links at this time, so you shouldn't, so nothing weird should go on. It's just more of a courtesy to you if you want to buy it. But because I am a librarian, I am going to encourage you to contact your local library and check it out from there. Okay? So I'll see you guys later. Bye.